but I guess it's
well,
just
like your fiance, for example, doesn't understand it.
Yeah, she doesn't get the whole collection sort of thing, but she might someday and she might not, you know.
So show me.
I guess this is just a photo of Frank Sinatra Drive in Vegas that my godparents took for me. A backstage pass from the Sands Casino in Vegas from a show that he did.
And Sinatra, you know, for this to mean something to people, Sinatra had to make a kind of unique connection, I guess.
Yeah, the songs, and it's a lot different than the stuff that's out now. I mean, like they say, they don't sing like they used to. So that's one of the things. It was just, there was more meaning to the music back then, and they just had so much fun with the stuff they did.
Tell me about the champagne.
It was given to me as a gift by friends of my parents, Maggie and Ed, for Christmas, because I am a big fan, and they thought that was sort of a neat little thing to add to my collection.
You know, champagne doesn't last forever.
No.
So, well, at some point you've got to open it, right? And I'm sure your fiance looks at that and says, gee, that's a perfectly good bottle of champagne, and we're getting married soon, so.
I think we'll probably have it at the wedding at the head table. Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah. Not today, though. No.
Not today. No.
Not today.
No. When you're listening to Sinatra, is there any one album, any one song that reaches your heart more than any other?
I'd have to say the best one would be, it was a song that he sang when he was with Columbia, I'm a Fool to Want You, which it was one of the, I think, if not the only song that he ever added lyrics to, because all his songs that he sang were written by other people, and he wrote the lyrics for his wife Ava Gardner, which is one that a number of people say is the only woman he really loved.
You know, I've been asking people all morning for their most meaningful Sinatra song, and every one of them have been songs in which Sinatra is putting forward sadness, tragedy, loss, heartbreak. He had an awful lot of happy songs, but it's these ones that seem to mean most to people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like another one I think that catches me in the mind is My Way. I'd like to have that played at my funeral. I think that's a good way to.
Although, you know, that's not that's a kind of a spit in your eye world kind of song, isn't it?
Yeah. But you know, that's basically, you either loved him or you hated him. He was just one of those
And he didn't
guys.
care.
No, not at all.
Of his movies, I guess you've seen all of his movies about 19 times each.
Oh yeah.
What's the best Frank Sinatra moment?
Probably in From Here to Eternity, when Maggio was dying, and it's just, the acting doesn't get any better than that.
It's strange, isn't it, that he was so good a singer in one way, in that kind of fluent, cavalier way, and then he's able to look so piteous on camera.
Yeah. I mean, he was great at everything he did, singing, acting. That was, like I said, it was the man, just multi-talented. That's one of the biggest attractions I had to Sinatra.
Did you ever see him when he seemed happy?
I've seen his 80th birthday party that they threw for him where he performed, and I actually have a CD of the recording of that. And he did seem happy, like, you know, just sort of like a man who had reached a point in his life where he was content with what he had. And yeah, he was, you could tell he's happy.
You have a plate with music on it?
Yeah, actually I do. I got this actually from my parents. And it's the newest one from the collection, New York, New York. Chairman of the board is at the bottom, and it does play a tune.
It plays a tune?
Yeah. There's the button.
If I can make it there, I'm gonna make it anywhere.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's up to you. I took the blows and did it my way. You ought to know. We're drinking, my friend, to the end of a brief
episode. Make it one for my baby and one more for the road.
A music legend leaves the stage. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mary Tillotson. Frank Sinatra died last night of a heart attack in California. He was 82 years old, and he had been one of the most famous entertainers in the world for more than half a century. From big band singer of swing to movie stardom, Sinatra performed until he was well into his 70s. It's been years now since Sinatra sang in public, but there is no question his musical style, his phrasing and interpretation of songs will continue to influence other singers as long as there is recorded music. Here to talk about Sinatra and his lasting influence, author Bill Zemme, whose biography of Frank Sinatra is titled The Way You Wear Your Hat. He's joining us from Chicago this morning. From New York, Leah Rosen, who covers the entertainment industry for People magazine. In the background, you can see Hoboken, home of Frank Sinatra, the place he was born. Letitia Baldridge was there as a social secretary to First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy back when Frank Sinatra was a fixture in the early years at Camelot. And on the phone with us from New York, singer Margaret Whiting. We are pleased to have all four of you. Miss Whiting, I'm going to start with you. You and Sinatra go all the way back to when you first heard him singing with the Dorsey Band?
That's correct.
When was that? Give us an idea.
Well, that was in the 40s at the Palladium in Hollywood, California. And one night, I went to hear him with Jimmy Van Heusen, the songwriter, and Skitch Henderson, and then he said he would join us at our favorite Italian restaurant, and we waited for him, and he came in and he said, "Hey kids, you know what? I've just left the band. I have one more week with them because I'm signing a contract with Bluebird Records." That's the second label they had at RCA. And he said, "I'm going to have Axel Stortel make the arrangements and conduct for me. And I've got these wonderful Tom Adair and Matt Dennis songs to do. And this is my big break." So we drank a wine cocktail to him and wished him the best of luck. But that's the best thing that I remember that night.
To Letitia Baldridge, I've never quite thought of you as a Bobby Soxer. I think of you in stuffier times at the Kennedy White House. Were you that big a fan of his?
I was an unbelievable fan. Adolescence for a girl is just awful, and I was very tall and undanced with. So I would lock myself in my room every weekend night with my Frank Sinatra records and dance around the room by myself. And what his voice did was make me think that every man that I was in love with, including all these nerdy boys in high school, that they loved me back. That's what Sinatra's music did to us. He wasn't a hunk, he wasn't a handsome guy, at least by my standards, but he made romance fill your soul with his music. I'll never forget that. And later on, he went on filling our souls with music. He became debonair and sophisticated in his marvelously tailored black dinner jacket, his tuxedos. Of course, he caused a lot of young people to smoke because he handled that cigarette in such a glamorous way. But he really made you think your own romantic thoughts about anybody you happen to be in love with. That's why I think he was such a success.
Let me bring Bill Zemme, his biographer, in. I heard one young person, Bill, ask this morning, well, he was almost as popular as Elvis, wasn't he?
Oh, almost,
Almost.
yeah.
Tell us about that, for those of us who don't remember the 1940s and Harry James and Tommy Dorsey.
Well, he was the first Elvis. He was the first Beatles. There will never be pandemonium like that again. It's amazing to think of him in those terms because by the time of the 50s came along, he had redefined himself as the swinger, as Swingin' Frank, and certainly throughout the 60s, the chairman of the board. But he was the first teen sensation. He had the Bobby Soxers, and he made girls swoon just by moving his Adam's apple, which was fairly prominent. He was very, very thin, and he kind of grew into his face. just all about charisma, though. And if you listen to these old recordings, and you can find them, he shrieks back at them. He's so charmed with the idea of the women, the little girls, frankly, being so excited to be shrieking at him. He shrieks back, and they go nuts.
I want to bring Leah in. I think a lot of us have been trotting out celebrity cliches this morning. Legend, icon. Where would you put him in the great pantheon of stars that have been known worldwide for so many years?
I would put him right at the top. I think, you know, internationally, worldwide, he is famous to begin with, but he's also incredibly influential. The number of singers who have stolen much of their phrasing, much of their technique from Sinatra is legion. And additionally, he more legitimately than just about any other singer, certainly Elvis, became a real movie star with performances where he didn't just sing. From Here to Eternity, where he won an Oscar, he deserved that Oscar. Manchurian Candidate, a terrific film. He's good in that. So you have the musical films, which you would expect, but you also have some serious dramatic performances.
I want to bring Margaret Whiting in, because the word I do keep hearing Ms. Whiting with connection with his musicality is phrasing, and that he was in a class by himself. Describe for the lay people out here what that is. I assume it's sort of like having a good eye if you're a photographer. Somebody can teach you the technicalities, but you've got to see the poetry in it.
Well, you have to, he made us feel every lyric that he sang. The lyric was the important thing in the songs, and when he sang that album, the Wee Small Morning, what was that
Wee
called?
Small Hours of the Morning?
Yes, that was the best. That was the best singing around that time that I ever heard of his, and he really, no one could phrase like he could, or make you feel the song, like when he sang One for My Baby and One More for the Road. That you could just listen to and realize what he must have gone through sometime, and that you've gone through it too. You have something in common. He touched everyone when he sang.
You won quite a few laurels, have, in your lifetime for your own singing. Did it surprise you that he was able to make the transition so beautifully to acting? And that I would have to think if you communicate a song in that way, you are in part acting as well, aren't you?
Of course.
Yeah.
He was a great actor. He didn't know it at first, but he kind of fell into it. You know, he wanted that one role. He was in Africa with Ava Gardner, and he wanted it, and he came back and fought for it and got it, and showed what a great actor he was.
Bill Zimri, biographer of Sinatra, what is interesting to me and seems in such conflict is that you hear stories from friends like Margaret Whiting about this man's immense warmth and kindness and generosity, but he could be very nasty to people who were not his best buddies, couldn't he?
I wrote a very specific kind of book. I went to him and had him explain the elements of style and comportment and how men ought to behave. He had a temper, God knows, and was not afraid to show it, but he was always straight. He was a man who shot from the hip and liked the truth. He liked facts. He wanted, you know, in our politically correct era, he is a man who would say what was on his mind no matter where he was, whether it was on stage or you know, in a bar. And oftentimes he was, you know, besieged by a lot of people who wanted to pick fights with him because, you know, men especially thought, you're not so tough, Sinatra. Well, these are the headlines you would read about Sinatra being a pugilist, a man who couldn't keep his fist to himself. And in fact, you know, what I explored in the book, which is more of an exploration really of how he did things, and he participated. He answered questions for me about how this is done, and his friends did as well. It's very grossly exaggerated. We lose the fact that here is a man who had a divine gift that no one has ever had, nor will they ever have again. He was born with a chromosome they stopped making 82 years ago.
And it was all in his throat, right?
It was no, it was in his eyes, I think.
We're going to take a break. Do want to thank Margaret Whiting for joining us, a legend in her own right in music from the 40s and 50s. When we come back, we're going to have Connie Haynes with us and Hank Catania, who also worked with Sinatra in the field of music. Stay with us. As we go to a break, in the 1950s, Frank Sinatra's singing career had hit a big slump. But at that particular moment, his acting career took off like a rocket.
Frank Sinatra wins another of the 8 Oscars captured by the film After winning an Academy Award for From Here to Eternity, Sinatra was once again a major star.
Sorry, gentlemen, I already won my bankroll in the latrine. Besides, a penny ante game.
He was reportedly offered a multi-million-dollar television deal, and 3 of his albums each sold over 1 million copies.
If you are among the very